Welcome. Episode 3, Lane 1 Talk Show.
Let's get it.
Let's get it. We're doing this. We're episode 3. We're like a freight train, dude.
Yeah, we're just rolling, man. So a couple things we're going to talk about today. We're going to give a few training updates. We're going to talk about our pre-race vibes. And yeah, we're just going to go through the whole thing. We got something special for you guys at the end of this episode. Hopefully it gets you guys excited to keep on listening through, but really excited to get this one rolling. Phil, how you feeling right now?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. Good holidays. Just finished Christmas. A lot of time with the family.
Yeah, what gift were you excited the most about that you got?
What gift was I got? I got a cool like selfie stick thing for my cell phone. It's like magnetic. And a flannel. I got a nice flannel.
Yeah, you know, we getting old when you get happy about getting clothes now. When you're a kid, you used to hate getting clothes, and now
I love getting clothes. I love it. It's my favorite.
Yeah, you get new socks and new underwear too.
Yeah. What about you? What'd you get?
Oh man, the thing I'm most excited that I got is I got a rice cooker.
Oh, nice. Another grown adult gift.
Yep, grown adult gift. That's what I asked my parents for. I just told them, like, get me a rice cooker. So they got me one from Costco that cooks rice and steams vegetables on top. So you can just kind of like cook things simultaneously. Working remote, that thing is clutch. Having appliances like that is clutch because one thing people don't talk about when working remote is like the amount of dishes you have to do. It's stupid because you're doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner all at home. So having something like that where it's a single appliance where I only have to use a single thing, that's huge.
Yeah, that's clutch. That is very clutch. You don't have to boil the water and do all that. And it steams your vegetables too. So you can, while it's steaming, you can cook your protein.
Definitely. But first, my boy Phil over here, he got a little sponsorship shout out.
But first, yes, we have our very first sponsor, right? Is Lane 1 merch shop. So we just set this up for coming into the trials. This episode is brought to you by the Lane 1 merch shop, where you can find limited edition Team Reed merchandise on sale commemorating the 2024 Marathon Olympic Trials in Orlando, Florida. We got t-shirts, crew necks, hoodies, kids wear. There's something for everyone. So whether you're able to come in person to Orlando in February, or if you just want to support from afar, we got plenty of Team Reed gear for you, and it ships directly to your door. So I'm excited about that. And we're launching the store too. So we have plans for some other merch, Lane 1 gear coming down the line. But I'm excited to announce our very first sponsor, which is my merch store, our merch store for us.
We're sponsoring ourselves.
We're sponsoring ourselves, right? You lead from the front. So excited about that. That is our sponsor. And check it out. I'll put the links into the bio of my Instagram. We got links on YouTube, description box, and I'll put it, if you're listening to the audio, I'll put a link into the description of the podcast as well. So there'll be plenty of opportunities you find a link. And also one thing that I keep forgetting to say on some of the other previous podcasts is where you can find us. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. You can also find us on Podbean. So we're on all the major platforms. So, listen in the car, on the plane, you can download it. So, make sure that you that you have access to the Lane 1 Talk Show pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, and I hate to be that guy, but like, subscribe, comment, share. You have to shout that out. That's how we're going to grow. That's how other people are going to learn about us. And even if we're maybe not your cup of tea, we could be somebody else's cup of tea, and maybe they enjoy hearing us talk about what we have to talk about. So yeah, definitely any of that support, even just a quick like, that kind of stuff kind of gives the algorithms on all of those platforms indication on who else might like it. Maybe someone very similar to you might like it. So give us that support. We appreciate y'all for listening to begin with. So
absolutely. Yes. Thank you for listening. Okay. So we got the business housekeeping out of the way. Club Nats. Let's talk briefly about Club Nats. Club Nats was about 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. We placed 5th overall. Mark, you were our number 1 man. 12th place, correct?
12th place, man. 2 weeks of training. I was pretty hyped about that.
It's pretty hyped. Yeah, that was a great race for you, especially given your recovery. I was 23rd. And I guess since I'm talking, I'll just kind of share my perspective of the race itself. I felt like we had a great race. I got a really good start. We were out in the top 8, in the first, 800 meters. I felt like we were working well together. We were kind of helping each other along. And 5K in, I probably wasn't feeling great, but again, you were pretty close by, and I kept, kind of using you as a little bit of to key off of. We were kind of using each other, and I guess I should say too that it wasn't Tallahassee, Florida, and it was, I don't know, high 70s. Would you say?
Yeah, it was like about 77, humid, windy, course not kept. It was a really slow day for what is historically a fast course.
Yeah, that's a good point. The course was not kept. They just kind of let it grow after the NCAA season. So it wasn't a great day in terms of ideal running conditions. And like right around 8.5, 9K, I just like my left hamstring grabbed up on me really tight, really, really painful. Coming around really where I really felt it was that, that downhill when you come by the start or the finish, when you come by the finish. So the last time going by the finish by the Jumbotron is where it kind of grabbed up on me a little bit, and it just kind of just got worse. And it just, it was just painful. And I just didn't have that energy return that I was having. And it just really like limited my range of motion. And I felt like I blew a tire. Like I had a suspension strut that went out, and luckily I was able to finish, but I did drop back. I was with you. I was in 13th.
You're ahead of me with the K to go.
Yeah, I was ahead of you. I was looking at maybe getting up into the, top 10 maybe. And I fell back like 10, 12 spots to finish 23rd, which still was able to salvage a good race. I didn't drop out. I still was, a contributor to the team, but like it just, me, people know me. I club cross country is an important race. And it's like, 23rd, I didn't feel like really exemplifies where I am with my training. And it doesn't, I really think on a B+ day, I would have been right with you, maybe even in the top 10,
Yeah.
And I think on an A+ day, who knows? But, yeah, so it's a little bit of bittersweet. I know that you did well. You were 12th. And I was thinking about this actually, like 2021, you and I were both on that day, right?
Yeah, we got 7th and 9th.
7th and 9th. And then last year you were recovering from an Achilles and you were top 30?
No, man, I got like 39th.
Yeah, but but you had an injury, right?
Yeah, I went into that completely injured.
Yeah, so and this year you had a good race and I was the one in the chute crying, right? So like I think we had some sympathetic years there.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, if you getting 23rd is you crying in the chute, then that kind of speaks to where you're at with fitness. I do think you would have probably been right around that 6th, 7th, 8th place had you not pulled up, just because of how good you look. Like, just to give a little bit of perspective from my end. For me personally, I never thought I was having a bad day. I hadn't trained that much, but going into it, I was in the right mindset. I was kind of hoping for crap weather just because, I hadn't been training too much, which I've said a couple times, but like I hadn't been training too much. So I was like, okay, the worse other people feel, I truly believe I can hurt more than other people. I truly feel like the more people are in their heads about having a bad day is in my favor. So for me,
right,
I got out pretty conservative pretty early on. A couple guys got out ahead, probably created maybe a 50-meter gap from the get-go. It was Ty Dinger and another guy from I believe the East Coast. Them two got out ahead, pulled away a bit, both 28 low guys. And then there's a pack of about 5 guys and then a pack of about 15, which was our pack. And me and you were anywhere between 9th and 15th for most of the race.
Right.
And so there came a point where there were stragglers that started to fall off that front pack. And we just started picking them off one by one. And I posted a pretty cool picture on our Instagram, or a pretty cool series of pictures, me and you just shoulder to shoulder picking off people. And that was pretty dope. That was a cool feeling.
No, that's good. And that was 90% of the race for me. That shoulder to shoulder, that I think really captures where we were at.
Yeah. And so we're just picking people off. And going into that last loop is when I started to feel pretty rough. That's when the conditions started to get to me. I started feeling like cold. You know what I'm talking about? When you're running hot and your body starts feeling cold, you start getting dehydrated. So I was like, okay, we got about 1,400 meters to go coming from the finish line. And with about a K to go, maybe about 1,200 to go, you passed me and you opened up a little bit on me. And with the K to go is when I caught back up to you, because I noticed there was 3 San Diego guys like right in front of us who are now lane 0 track club. But we'll talk about that some other day. We'll get Steven on one day and we'll have to have some banter with him. But lane 0 track club, athletics club, because track club is outdated now. They had 3 guys in that top 10 and I was like, shoot, I got to beat one of them. So me and you started rolling together and I noticed I passed you and then came down the finish chute. I didn't catch any of them. I wound up finishing 12th. And that's when you came through the chute and you were like, I fell way back. I was like, what, like 15th, 16th? When you told me 23rd, I was pretty surprised. But seeing what ended up happening, like we got back to the van and you're basically out of commission, limping your way back to the hotel room. It was pretty devastating to see, especially with the trials coming up. But with that in mind, with the trials coming up, you started working out again this week. You're about to work out with me again tomorrow, which will be a Saturday workout. What were kind of some of those things, because from a hamstring strain, you came back in about 2 weeks. What are some of the things that you did during that time? How did you stay mentally strong? Like, talk about that journey a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a flood of emotions, right? You know, it was like, you know, it's like, you know, I'm a pretty aware person. You know, I feel like I'm, you know, aware of what's going on. I'm like, I just tweaked my hamstring running a 10K when I'm training for a marathon that's 26.2 miles, right? I need to run 20 miles and then run a 10K, right? So, you know, you just have, you know, all these thoughts start creeping in. It's like, you know, I had already like, you know, we'd already committed to tickets and, you know, rental cars and, you know, all of this stuff going to Orlando, like group text, family text, who's coming, you know, I was at that time working on the merch store and training was going well. We already had started planning for that like 3-week out, like MLK Day weekend where we were going to have like our last big build. Like we had already had everything, like the freight train was moving. And I was just like, what am I going to do? Like, I could barely walk, dude. I could barely, like, I was like the team driver for the open men. And I'm like, just getting into the car was painful. And like, I didn't go out that night. Right. I just stayed at the hotel and I iced and I just went to bed. And I just was like, you just so much doubt. And I remember like that I was trying to, you know, you were trying to connect me, you know, with getting in to get some treatment on Sunday. And I was able to actually, I saw Andy, he was available. So the next day I was able to get some treatment on Sunday, but it's like, you know, there's just all this unknown. It's like, I can barely walk. I can barely like sit down for a long period of time. So the first week I just had to take off. I just had to take off a full week because I couldn't run. Like I tried running that Saturday, 7 days after, and it was still hurting. And then that next week I started doing some rehab activities. I got in to see Scott, our chiropractor, at the end, like 5 days after that Friday. And you know, I made a lot of progress. And then that weekend I was able to cross train again. And then that second week I started doing more rehab. I was in there doing like 20 to 30 minutes of like rehab activities every day. I went for like more consistent rehab versus like shorter periods. So like 30 minutes every day or every other day versus like, an hour session twice a week. Cause I really wanted to do as much as I could. Right. And I figured like maybe like lower volume, but more frequent would be better. I hit up another person I've been working with for a long time, Chris Borgard, who's strength and conditioning coach. He sent me some stuff. I actually met with him this past Saturday, the Saturday before Christmas. He gave me some more exercises and walked me through some stuff that I could do. But I've just been doing a lot of like, not necessarily even a lot of like hamstring strengthening, but like glute strengthening and hip flexor strengthening and loosening up of the feet and the ankle and the lower leg. And just working up from there. You and I worked out together in the gym like maybe a week ago. I was doing jogging, right? I was doing some power walking on the treadmill with with a little bit of jogging, and it's goofy, but I needed to get that,
man.
Yeah, it really helped. I'm really glad you suggested that, because that like I put it up 5% and I was just walking like 4.5 miles an hour, and I needed that bilateral movement, right? I needed that like that running like approximation. I needed the approximation of running, and then I'd put the miles per hour right below, like half a mile an hour below running pace, and I would just like truck along. So I did that for about a week. And then this week is week 3, the end of week 3, because we're recording this on Friday. And so this week I've been incorporating more running. And I got a 4.5 mile run in that felt fine. Did a 6 mile run in that went fine. Took a day off, then did a fartlek. Minute on, minute off. I mean, my watch was saying anywhere from 5:10 to 5:20 pace for 1 minute.
Oh, dude, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
I was when you said it was slow that you were hitting like 5:30, 5:40.
No, I was getting down to marathon pace for 1 minute. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's still like 77s if you did 400s.
Yeah. So I was, I did that. And then yesterday I did 2 sessions of elliptical. I did a fartlek in the morning, and then I did a mild sort of, I don't even know what you would call it. Like I did longer intervals, like 5 minutes, but a little bit less intense. So I got like 2 hours, 10 minutes in. I saw something, I think Parker Valby, she's a big cross trainer, and she was like saying, so I saw like a clip of her saying that like it's not like glamorous in there,
Yeah, you're grinding, man. Cross training is gnarly. Like just to piggyback off of that a little bit, when I injured my Achilles again this fall, kind of same thing as you. I was looking at it like doom and gloom, because I wanted this to be my season where I really really string things together. So I got desperate, if I'm being real, like the best way to put it. I got desperate. And it was to the point where I was swimming 40 minutes a day, aqua jogging 20 minutes a day, and hitting the bike for an hour a day. So similar to you, about 2 hours of total cross training. And again, we run because we love the damn thing. Like, we love the sport. We love the activity. We love getting out on trails, seeing different things, move, like the genuine sport of running is what we love to do. So getting in a pool and aqua jogging, again, it's like what you were saying, doing the walk jog at Planet Fitness. I'm at Sinsheimer Park, where everybody is 60-plus-year-old in the pool. All the lifeguards are high schoolers. And then there's the high school swim team, like club team, practicing on the side. And there's this grown man with an aqua jogging belt just going as hard as he could until his face is red, aqua jogging in the damn pool in like the deep side for 20 minutes. Everyone looking like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Right.
But you have to, right?
You have to. And it's, and we're going to get into this a little bit more when we talk about sicko mode, but it's almost like, you kind of have to go into that special place of your brain. You talk about Kobe, you talk about MJ and the work ethic, right?
Yeah. And there's a quote from Mike Tyson that I like a lot, that I think about when I am in those moments that it sucks. And Mike Tyson said the definition of discipline is doing what you hate, but executing it like you love it, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. And that's kind of the mindset you have to go into.
You have to do that. And like, you know, you asked about, you know, how I felt, and, you know, in the flood of emotions, what kind of like coming back from Florida, and after a couple days, you know, everything started to kind of fall into perspective, and I think that's kind of the benefit of being a blue collar runner and being, you know, I have a full-time job. My wife and I are both teachers, and it was like, yes, it was less than ideal. It's less than ideal. Like, obviously in tunnel vision, the Olympic trials are on the horizon, and we're doing everything we can to have a great race and do everything right. But in like the grand scheme of things, right, in terms of like general, you know, human existence, it's like, you know, we still have jobs, everybody's healthy, you know, getting Calvin to school is still a priority, and getting, you know, all, you know, the bills are paid, and just like going through everyday life, you know, things are still okay, right? Like, you know, so it really puts things in perspective that, like, you know, I'm not super stressed out from the standpoint of like, okay, now if I don't compete at the trials to the, you know, level that I want to, or something like that, it's not like I'm going to get cut from a company, or I'm not going to, you know what I mean? Like, that's reassuring. Like, it has that catch me if I fall feeling, right? Like, you still have the team read, right? We just looked at the at the gear, and you know, I feel a lot of confidence in the people that are around me, you know, and that I can push myself to, I can push myself, and regardless of the result, you know, they're still going to be waiting for me and still going to be happy, right? So that has given me a lot of confidence. And I really have turned the corner this week. I've really like made a ton of progress this week in the past like 5 days. And I think a lot of that has been because of the support of, people like yourself, my wife, my son, my family, and just our greater network of people, individuals.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's again not ideal, but we're making the most of it, and I'm actually feeling pretty good.
Yeah, and I love what you said about, like, at the end of the day, everyone's still gonna love you, right? So that's kind
Yeah.
of what um that reminds me of going back to quotes, Kobe Bryant. He said what really unlocked him was when he was about like 10 years old. His dad said, whether you do good or bad, we're still gonna love you regardless. And he said when he heard that, it was the green light, like, okay, let's see how good I can really get at this thing. When he turned 13, that's when he made his deals, just because it's like, end of day, yeah, we put a lot of time into this thing. We put a lot of effort into this thing, but your eggs are in different baskets. Your family's still going to love you. Life is still going to go on. The earth is going to look the same whether you're running well or not.
Yeah.
Whether the trials goes how you plan. Like, you qualified and you're doing the best you could to get there in one piece, to get there to the best you possibly could. End of day, your family's going to be happy whether you win or not.
Yeah. No, and yeah, that's given me a lot of strength, and it's given me a lot of like, it's given me kind of the green light that I can push myself. You know, you can take a risk. You can put yourself out there, and, make yourself vulnerable. And, the result, whether or not it's positive, negative, or indifferent, it's, people are still going to love you, and, life will continue. So yeah, that is, the flood of emotions, but I'm really looking forward to the trials. Honestly, like, it's all coming together. We just got a rental car.
Starting to feel real.
It's starting to feel real. But yeah, that's how we're doing in the preparation for the trials. How's your training update? What are we getting ready for indoor?
Getting ready for indoor, man. I'm gonna race in 4 weeks. Looking, targeting BU, the what is it, John Terrier or John Thomas Terrier Classic, something like that. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name, but yeah. So this weekend, I was prescribed a 12 by 1 mile at marathon pace by Coach Joe Rubio. So I decided to take that as an opportunity, and I broke it up into 2 workouts, and I did the infamous put in flashing lights and fireworks, hand waving in the air, double threshold workout.
Oh, but yeah, he said it.
Double threshold, the buzzword, the thing that's been taking over let's run message boards, different training groups, blood lactate testing. Took a swing at it just because our coach is not a big believer in it. Just because his theory is, people have run well without doing it forever. Hardly, in the grand scheme of things, not that many people do it. So I took an opportunity. I just wanted to see how I feel. I speak about it a lot. I'm super obsessed with studying training, so I decided to give it a go. And the workout I chose was 1 mile, 2 mile, 1 mile, 2 mile, 1 mile in the AM, all at about half marathon pace or right around threshold. I wasn't taking my blood lactate, but I was keeping an eye on my heart rate. So the goal was to be between 88 to 92% of my maximum heart rate, which is right around 168. My math whizzes out there. 168 to 173 was ideally where I wanted to be at. Just kept an eye on it. Went purely off of effort. Wound up running about 5 flats on the miles and about like 10:08, 10:04 on the 2 miles. And then in the PM, I came
How much
back.
rest?
How much rest? To about 75 seconds, actually. I just jogged around for about 75 seconds in between each rep.
Shorter rest. Yep. Shorter rest.
Shorter rest. Definitely. The longer the rest, the faster I could go. But for what I was trying to accomplish, shorter rest and the kind of zone I was trying to hit. And then in the PM, I came back and did 5 by 1 mile on the roads. I went to a track. Turns out they were closed for the holidays. It's a public track back home. Shout out Edgewood High School in West Covina. But went out there. It was closed, but luckily that school, I've been running there since I was a kid. That's actually like where my origin start was. My mom would take me to the track there. But turns out the perimeter of the school, if you run the full block on the sidewalk, is exactly 1 mile.
Oh, nice.
So I've used this spot for workouts many times, especially if I get prescribed something like a 6 by 1 mile at like marathon pace or just a straight up steady state run. And I need somewhere uninterrupted, no stoplights, basically no places where a car is going to stop me. Went out there, executed, ran about 4:55 to 5 flat. I started at 5 flat, cut down to like 4:53. So yeah, pretty good. I felt better on the second session than I did on the first session, which was unexpected, but kept it well under control. Same thing, since the whole idea of it was to hit within that threshold and that like half marathon to marathon pace workout with what Joe prescribed. Wanted to keep that consistent with where I am, just because if you are doing this double threshold stuff, you have to periodize it. It's very similar to what every other program does. The difference is he's just doing more. He's just doing, and when I'm saying him, I'm talking about Jakob, which is where everyone pulled it from, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and the Norwegian style of training. Everybody doesn't really take into consideration that he's still periodizing it around what kind of efforts and what kind of paces he needs to be hitting. So there's a lot of multi-pace training in there.
So you talked about periodization. We're about 4 weeks away from the Terrier. And then we're going into the spring, into March and into April. How does the double threshold at this time of year fit into your periodization?
So for me, I don't anticipate too much of it in my future. Like I said, my coach doesn't necessarily believe in it too much. But one thing that is taken into context, or taken out of context, actually, to put it better, is a lot of this stuff, heavy base training, is not reinventing the wheel. It's just a different design, in the sense of this is just getting 12 miles worth of threshold volume in, versus if you're doing in a single session, you could probably get a maximum of like 10 miles, 9 miles without totally abusing your body. So for me, and looking at training logs of people that have done it successfully, they're not implementing this year round. This is in the base phase when you're in the winter or you're in the fall. And this is creeping a little bit into the spring, maybe that like February, March. But after that, it's just a matter of getting as much. It's like putting money in the bank. You're putting as much money in the bank as possible before you're getting ready to spend. And once you start getting into that like pre-race phase, which is that March, April, you start putting some things on the calendar. You got a poly invite on there, maybe your Brian Clay, a Mount Sac relays. Then you want to back off of that stuff because it shreds your body. After a while, you got to start depositing, or you got to stop depositing, and you got to start cashing in some of those checks with those races. You got to start feeling good. You got to start sharpening up. So for me, I'm probably taking a lot of this stuff out starting February, March. Going to back off of that a little bit and start focusing a little bit more on getting some race specific stuff in.
Yeah, it's a good way to sneak in miles too. Like you said, it's, when you're trying to get it volume in and base training, if you get in, warm up, cool down, strides, recoveries, everything totaled up, how much did you get that day? How many miles did you get that day?
I think I wound up getting like 21 or 22, something like that.
Yep.
I'll look at the Strava for the receipts, but I think it was like right around 21, because I did 2-mile warm up, 2-mile cool down. I jog in between reps. I count that as mileage. Sue me. But and yeah, right around that 21, 22 range. And it's a lot, but allows you to get that volume up.
Now, how does double threshold training compare to other types of training? Maybe more traditional threshold training, VO2, Lydiard, critical velocity, like all of these things that have come through, that all the buzzwords, right? And maybe some of the old heads. And I use that term respectfully, right? I use that term with the utmost love and respect. What would how does double threshold compare to those other methodologies?
Yeah, so when you look at it, threshold is something that's been around forever. Maybe people haven't explained it correctly, or just the information is more widely available. And even when you look at other teams, so the hot teams right now trending, OAC, they do not do double threshold. They do more traditional workouts, which is more stuff.
And that's on Athletic Club, right?
On Athletic Clubs. Yup. It's coached by Dathan Ritzenhein. Guys that they have their own podcast, the Coffee Club, Ollie Hoare, Morgan McDonald, Jordy Beamish, like a lot of those guys, they're not doing double thresholds, but they do a lot of the threshold principles. So they do take their blood lactate in between work, or in between intervals during workouts. And that's a little more old school. Dathan coaches more like the 80s, 90s coaches, which is what our coach does. We do a lot of identical workouts to them, like a 4x2 mile, a 3x3 mile, hills and twos. A lot of these, well, hills and twos is VO2 max. That's not threshold, but 4x2 mile, 3x3 mile, 2x4 mile. A lot of those more bulky, a lot of volume in a single session. That stuff has been around forever. It's just about refining it, right? And double threshold, what it allows you to do is, one, it's primarily built for people at altitude. So that's where you see a lot of those intervals, the 4x2K, the 10x1K, a lot of these broken up intervals. It's because when you're at 6,000 feet, or 7,000 feet, you don't recover as well in between.
Is that also because like VO2 workouts are like much more difficult at altitude, so that threshold and tempo style training is a little bit like more accessible?
That's a good question, but I would say probably not, just because it's a way to sneak in more, because we have this whole equation, 100% of a workout, right?
Right.
So for us, how we define 100% of a workout is the maximum amount of work that you can do in a single workout without running the risk of injuring yourself. So when you break a workout up, like let's say 12x1 mile, that's more than 100% for me. I would say 100% of a workout at marathon to tempo pace is about 10 miles. But you can sneak in 12 if you break it up into 2 sessions, because what you do in between is you hit the volume. In the AM session, I got 7 miles worth of volume, but guess what? I get to go home, eat a full meal, go to sleep for an hour or two, recover, come back and do 5 more miles. So 12 is more than 10. And that's kind of a way of justifying doing more. But to recover properly during those interval sessions, you break up those intervals into pieces, and that's also used so that you can test your blood lactate levels.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so you're doing, it's really like, it's kind of like doing 2 times 80% workouts.
Yeah.
In a day. And at altitude, the recovery aspect, I'm just spitballing here, but I'm saying because there's not as much oxygen in the air that you're breathing, so your body isn't flushing out the byproducts of those harder sessions as quickly as it would be at sea level. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's just the intervals in general. Like if you do a 4-mile tempo and you go on the deep end at altitude, like you shot your workout. Like your heart rate spikes so high. So to ensure you don't do that, you break it up into pieces. That's why when we went down our whole threshold kick back in 2018, we were doing like 12x1K at like 5-minute pace. We're doing a lot of these workouts really slow, broken up into intervals, because that's what we're seeing other coaches do. But in reality, a lot of those methodologies were made for people at altitude, not necessarily for us at sea level.
So it's really like the double T is really evolutionary and not so much revolutionary, right?
Yeah, it's a safer way to get more volume.
Yeah, it's a safer way to get more volume, and it can be incorporated with VO2 and with hills and other sort of like bread and butter traditional styles of training. You're talking about Dathan. Do they do double T?
No, they do not do double T. They do everything single. So they do workouts similar to us, where they're 4x2 mile, 2x4 mile, 3x3 mile, stuff like that.
Okay, and they might just double back with a 6 mile evening run or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All their stuff is on Strava. So if anyone like ever gets interested, a lot of those guys like Klecker, Morgan McDonald, they're really open about what they do. They talk about it too. They post it all.
And that makes sense. Like Dathan was an 11th or 12th grade when I was in high school, like when I was a freshman. And you know, I think he's a like Rockford, Michigan kind of guy. So like Midwest, like, you know, kind of going to Colorado. I can see a lot of those like traditional like philosophies from the 80s and 90s, like you talked about. But it's like that stuff works, you know. And you know, I think you know double threshold can fit into those equations when done properly, right?
Yeah, like Mike Smith, from what I've seen his guys do, they don't necessarily replicate the exact Norwegian model of like, you know, 6x6 minutes or like 20x400. They don't necessarily copy and paste. A lot of the Mike Smith workouts too are he only uses it to hit that like half marathon pace. And since they're in NAU, like 65, whatever they're at, 65 or 7,000, they're just using it for that 445 to 450 pace for their 13 flat guys. So it's not necessarily that he's doing every single workout and copy and pasting exactly what the Norwegian model is.
Right. And what do they call it? They call it sub T?
No, sub T for them is marathon pace. They just call it T.
They just call it T. Okay. T, sub T. Got it. And people,
yeah.
And their terminology here gets a little confusing. I mean, you could probably do a whole episode on the terminology, like, as you say, tempo, threshold, cruise. You have all these terms. Like I a lot of times I will call it like, you know, 5 times 2 mile at tempo pace. And I'll just kind of use that sort of casually. And you know, I think tempo gets thrown around a lot too, but I think threshold is more of like a, you know, it's more clearly defined lactate level, like you said. Who should do double T and who should not do double threshold?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say people, it kind of depends what people respond well to, right? And what people's ability to handle load is. So what people's ability to handle like heavy mileage. So someone who
higher mileage?
Yeah, like higher mileage guys who historically have stronger aerobic engines. You want to keep feeding the beast. But then you have guys that are, you know, a little bit more on the speedy side, a little more of that sprinter type of runner, or like a in the lower events like the 800 and the 15. A lot of those guys might not benefit from high mileage because they have all those fast twitch, or like they might not benefit as much. So a lot of it
on that topic, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the I was reading up on this, and that's actually one of the things that the Norwegians, you know, came up with as well, is if you have more of a middle distance profile, 815, that's actually not a good that's not a good event group for this style of training.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I mean, being out here in slow, there's the slow TC or the Van Oy boys, whatever you want to call them. They all run pretty identical times. Craig's run 144, Baylor's run 145, John's run 145. But you look at their training, it's all different. John trains like a sprinter, Baylor trains like right in between, and Craig trains more like a long distance runner in the sense of what their long runs look like, the length of their tempos, what they can run in an open two. A lot of them, they run very similar times, but when it comes down to the actual execution of practice, it'll be like on Monday, Craig has 6 in the morning, 4 in the PM. And then you see John run 4. but that's just like an example of stuff that they do.
Right.
And their mileage is wildly different. Their training is wildly different, but a lot of times those guys will, you can't necessarily apply, like copy and paste the same program for those guys. So shout out to Vanderbilt for getting those guys right.
No, I do appreciate that. How, it is, everything is intentional. We're seeing kids in high school do double T. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I mean, it's hard to tell because you look at where it started with a guy like Jakob, and he started it since he was a kid and has seen wild success. But I think for kind of like the Western culture, for a lack of a better term, I think you have to let those kids be kids because they're not running out of desperation the way like the Ingebrigtsen family is. Like it was gold medal or bust. I think a lot of these kids just don't like it enough, or the issue with that too is if you do that in high school, they start worshiping their coach as like, the godsend, like this guy's the second coming of Christ. And what that can really do is just because of the way that the system is set up, you're going to go from high school to NCAA. Now you have kids going from doing double threshold in high school to a coach that maybe doesn't believe it in NCAA. And guess what? They're not going to buy in. And that almost becomes like the bane of that college coach's existence, because now it's like, well, what are you going to do? This kid doesn't trust you at all. He's doesn't think this program works. He's not bought in. And a lot of times it's probably never really executed correctly. Like, could you do a tempo right in high school? I couldn't. My coach told me to do a 3-mile tempo and I PR'd in my 3-mile.
Yeah. No, we did tempo mile repeats like on the track.
Crew monitored, yelled at if you went too fast.
Yeah. I mean, when I was coaching high school, we would do miles, we'd do thousands, we would do 800 meters, short rest, short recovery.
Yeah.
I think, I think you said something there, desperation. When Ingebrigtsens were trying to make teams, it was trying to, gold medal, or bust. And, I think you got to pump the brakes a little bit sometimes in high school. Like if I think to a certain extent, I think maybe double threshold would work scientifically. But like you said, when you're talking about if you still continued with double threshold in March and April, you're not going to be feeling fast, right? You're not going to be feeling good.
You get flat.
You get flat. So, they're experiencing that at 16, 17, 18 years old, right? When they should be feeling good and excited to go to the next level, right? You could get to the next level and feel flat. So I think it's one of the things of like, yes, technically you could do it, but should you,
Yeah, I just don't think a lot of kids in high school, like, again, it took a special breed of athlete to do it. A kid that said he's going to be the best in the world when he was 10. Like, I just don't think a lot of kids are disciplined enough to train the right way to do it. Like, not run too hard. I mean,
and also,
our age can't do that.
And also, like, are we doing the other 21 hours a day? Are they eating well, sleeping well, hydrating, napping, all that stuff, all that support, all those little, ancillary activities are very important, I think, to this style of training that is, like you said, let kids be kids. If they want to go to homecoming, or if they have prom, or if they have something like that, like that is, that's important to them too. So it is, I think it's definitely something that is probably best for, college and above.
Yeah, someone who could actually be dedicated to it, someone who can consciously make the decision, like, I'm going to be all in on this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that is, I mean, we can go for days
on that.
We can go for days on that. But yeah, I'm glad to, was that your first attempt at double threshold?
Yeah, that was. I just wanted to see how it felt because, you put a lot of research into it. It's been the buzz. Guys like, the whole Mike Smith team had a lot of US champions this year. They won the 5 to 10, the women's 15. And they also, NAU is one of the top premier programs. What did they go, like 5 out of the last 6, something like that, and won national titles. You look at guys like Hobbs Kessler, who is the phenom from high school from Michigan that went pro. He just started incorporating it, dropped his 15 from 334 to 332. Wow. So you got, and he's
a pure miler, right?
Yeah, he also has a 145 800,
but he's not like a Jakob.
No, pure miler. Yeah,
he's like he's a pure miler doing the double threshy. So
yeah, I mean, little brick.
Yeah. Awesome. We want to talk about race vibes.
Yeah, pre-race vibes. Yeah. So what we're talking about that is the moments leading into the race. Maybe you're in the hotel room, maybe you're at home if you live near the venue, but most of the time you're in your hotel room, your Airbnb, and you're getting ready for this race that you probably either have in a couple hours or you have at night. So Phil, how do you get in the zone? What is your go-to? Because I've shared a lot of trips with you.
Yeah.
I've seen you do a lot of different things. I've seen you go on like your walks just because you need to get away for a little bit. What are some things that you do to get into the zone before a race?
I would say, my go-to, kind of depending on what time of day, right? Most of my races these days are in the morning, because I do road races mostly, but the same could be applied to an evening track race. But it's in the hotel, maybe 2 or 3 hours before the race. So maybe, an hour or two before we leave, I'll go for a walk. I'll go for a walk outside. I like to, especially for road races, I just like to just feel what the vibe is outside, what the weather's like, what it looks like. And if depending on where the hotel is, if we're close, then I can go check out the start line or something. But if we're not close, I'll just walk around the hotel. And I'll usually listen to some songs that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But I've also been getting into kind of like some YouTube videos that I like to watch. And some of them are like live performances of the songs, because I like live music. And one of the ones I really like to listen to, and part of my like morning walk coffee routine, is Rick Ross Tiny Desk, which he made during the pandemic. And it's on NPR, Tiny Desk Concerts, if you ever want to go look it up. But he does a great job of just like all of his songs, and it's all live band. And I think there's something about executing, right? When you're in a live performance, especially for something like hip hop. Hip hop is not always done with live instruments, right? It's a lot of like, synthetic sort of keyboard style beat making, beat machines. So when it's like live, it's like it feels a little bit kind of like that percussive, like, that marching band, in like, back in the day when they used to like have drummers as part of the army, right? It was like that marching to battle. So that I like watching some of that. So I'll watch some live performances, or listen to some live performances and clips of them. I'm not going to listen to a whole 45-minute concert, but I've also been getting into past couple years of like scenes of movies. I'll watch like one or two scenes before we head to the course or wherever we're going. I'll watch like just clips. Like one of my go-tos is in the Batman in the Dark Knight Rises, I think, or the second Christopher Nolan one, the Dark Knight, with Christian Bale as Batman. The Joker bank vault scene, when the masked Jokers all like rob the bank, and it's just like such a kind of like I don't know what it is about that scene, but I guess maybe the execution of it.
It just gets you riled up, right?
It gets you fired
back, your neck standing up.
Yeah, and it gets you, and it's just the way it's shot, and it's I don't know. I and there's some other movies that I like too, but those Navy SEAL movies, things like that, that are like, high energy, but also like precision, and everything has to happen in a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Those are kind of my things that I look into, that are part of my pre-race routine. Just like I get the body moving, I do a couple of familiar things, maybe hit the massage gun, do a little bit of foam roll, nothing too crazy. What about you?
For me, first of all, I like to eat a big meal, unless if I race super early in the morning, can't do that. But like if I'm racing anything afternoon, I eat a big breakfast. I eat as much as I possibly could for breakfast. That's a thing that I do. So like a lot of times it's waffles, a lot of times eggs, bacon, stuff like that. So that is a huge thing for me. So if I'm in a hotel, sit in the lobby, eat as much as I can from that hotel breakfast. Or if not, I'll go to Denny's or like IHOP, something safe, eat as much as I possibly can. I love getting stack of pancakes, all that kind of stuff. So that's a big one for me. Again, unless if I race like a half marathon in the morning or a road race in the morning. A lot of times I don't have time to do that. Gotta have coffee too. Getting hyped up on coffee.
Yep, gotta have coffee.
I'm an addict. But to get to the nitty-gritty, I kind of go to a dark place once it comes to getting ready for pre-races, man. Like I don't know if this is healthy or not, if anyone's a therapist or a psychologist listening to this, but like I have screenshots, I have receipts of times people have either said things to me that hurt me, things that people have either done to me that piss me off, or things people have said about me, or times that were really hard in my life, or songs that trigger emotions. And I have a playlist that does that. And I just read them over and over and over and over and over to the point where it just gets me so riled up, and just keep listening to these songs that get me riled up. And it's just keep on reading and keep on reading until I get into this weird phase. I don't know what to call it. That's why we call it sicko mode. That's the only thing I can think of. Like, just get to this real dark place to where I feel like I'm so agitated that I feel uber aggressive. And I think my teammates can attest to it when I'm getting to the course and there's people over here, like I forget which club it was, but they had like the T on their chest and it looked like the T-Mobile logo, and they're like, "What are we gonna do?" And they're like, "Kill the competition." And they're standing next to us, and I got mad at that because I was just agitated from this whole routine. I told them, "Yeah, you guys are really gonna kill people with the damn T-Mobile logo on your damn chest. You guys look stupid. I bet you're not cracking the top 10." Like, and they were so lost because it's club cross country. And I'm over here acting like it's a damn football game. Like I'm just yelling at the top of my lungs. I'm catching some bodies. I'm just angry. And that's kind of the zone that I get into. I can't quite remember when I started doing that, but I've always, going back to episode 1, what we talked about, like even things like when my buddy told me like it's B words like you that get burned at invitationals. Looking back at old text messages, looking back at old group chat messages, looking back at like, just interactions to where they weren't necessarily the best, but I just keep those receipts, and that's how I get riled up before races. And those are like, that is my key thing that I have to do. And I remember, I think I was at, what was it, San Jose, and I think Sean was my roommate, and he comes up and goes, "What are you reading?" And I was just like, yeah, I don't know how to explain this to you, man. This is what I do, because I was just reading it over and over, these messages.
Yep. There was I had a similar experience once. I won't get too specific with what the Aggies. We've been sponsored by Hoka and Asics and Reebok and stuff, and I won't get too specific with what this race was over my 15-year career.
Yeah,
but we were at a road race, and there was a guy in the race who had it was the same sponsor as I was at the time, and he had some prototype shoes on, and I'm like, and I was like, this guy has prototype shoes, and I was like, okay, I see you, I see you. So I like, it was like the Michael Jordan, like I took it personally, right?
Yeah.
I didn't say anything. I didn't make a big deal about it. But I was like, okay, like, all right, we're gonna mark this dude. And I knew I could beat him. I knew, like, I put a target on his back in the race, and we get out there and he stays over the horizon the whole time. Comes back a little bit, starts speeding up, and then like mile to go, he just starts coming back. He starts coming back. And then last 100 meters, I just Usain Bolt it, and I just barely get him at the line. And I was like, "Yep, gotcha, bro."
You had to, man.
Yeah. So, you know, that does work. I think you probably use a little bit more of that sicko mode than I typically do, but it does work. You know what I mean? It does. And you hear Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Kobe, RIP, you know, they all have that sort of like, they go to that special place, you know?
Yeah, like that's the thing. You're out there by yourself when you're racing. It's not necessarily like college or like club cross where you do have your team. Like you have a reason to hurt outside of yourself. Like, you know, you have to score, you have to execute, you have to be a low stick, whatnot. But when you're out there in these races that hurt really bad, because once you start getting faster, the races don't get easier. The paces don't feel easier. You feel every little bit of that pace, no matter how fit you get.
Right.
Like you need reasons to hurt. And
Right.
even if you have to create them in your head, or you have to create these scenarios in your head, or create these feelings in your body that are going to numb that pain and be like, you've gone through worse. It's kind of like pulling from the cookie jar, like David Goggins, like you pull through the cookie jar, you think of all the times that you've been hurt, like, or you think of all the things that have angered you in the past. And again, I want to also prefer, I want to like back it up with, I'm not just reading like ex-girlfriend text messages. I'm talking about like real stuff that like actually pissed me off in the past.
Yeah.
Like real stuff. But yeah, you have to dig.
You have to
find something that's going to help you dig no matter what it is.
Yes. And, you know, with that said, music is a big part of that, right? Obviously, I think we shared a little bit about our sort of individual race preparation, and that's very individual. Everything like your mental preparation, your thought process, your visualization is so individual, is so personal that like, you know, that's something that the individual runner has to come up with. But I like music, you like music, people generally like music. We got, you know,
part of our pre-races. We both have playlists.
Part of our pre-races. It's part of our culture. I mean, since I was in, you know, high school, you know, it was it was an aux cord cassette player with the compact disc player in the van, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, huh?
I said you old.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, that pump up mix, that's been a part of the routine since day one, right?
Yeah.
And with that said, we created a bracket where we are going to find out what our favorite pump up song is.
Cue the March Madness music. Let's go. We'll have to edit that in there.
Yeah, we'll have to add that in there.
Essentially, what me and Phil picked is we found 32 mutual songs that we both like, we're both familiar with, so it's not unfair, and we put it in a randomized bracket. And we're going to go through this bracket head to head on our next episode, and we're going to debate each song head to head all the way down till we come out with the champion on what is definitively, between mine and Phil's bracket, who comes out the March Madness champion as the best warm-up song. So Phil, do you want to run through what some of these songs are, just so they have an idea?
Yeah, we are going to run through these, and these are also we also have these in a playlist on Spotify, which we will link to our various platforms. And you know, you can you know, finish listening to this on Spotify and then go over to the Lane 1 pre-race bangers. So again, these are randomized, okay? So we didn't do a hard ranking, they're randomized. So on the left side of the bracket here, we have Eminem, Till I Collapse, and Fort Minor, Remember the Name, two classics. And then we have Kanye versus Kanye, which is I think fitting. We have Mercy and Stronger. So two actually, are those similar era Kanye's?
Nah, Stronger was like 06. Mercy was probably
That's
2010.
Right. Yeah, 2010. Yeah. Okay, that's right. So they're two different eras of Kanye. And then Lose Yourself, Eminem, which I listened to in high school, and then Steady Mobbin', which is that's what, Carter 3?
Nah, Steady Mobbin' was the Young Money mixed, or the Young Money album in like 2009.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that another heater. Then some
Bangerz.
Kendrick. Yeah, Kendrick DNA classic, Drake Forever. And that's Drake featuring what? Eminem,
Kanye. Jay-Z. We have a lot of Kanye, and here's one thing I noticed, and a lot of Drake.
Yeah. And then Linkin Park, Faint versus Black and Yellow by Wiz Khalifa. So we do it's mostly hip hop, but we do have a couple of metal songs, rock, new metal, whatever, alternative, whatever you want to call it. I mean, Faint, dude, that reminds me of Mount Sac, like CIF prelims, like senior year. Again, going down to E40 versus E40 Tell Me When to Go versus Drake 0 to 100. That's a great matchup.
That'll be a tough one.
That'll be a tough one. Then DJ Khaled, I'm On One versus Monster by Kanye West. Now Kanye West, that Monster song has Nicki in it, right?
Yeah, I think Nicki and Jay-Z and Rick Ross.
Oh yeah, that's right. Rick Ross is in it.
That's a heater, bro. That is a banger.
And DJ Khaled has Rick Ross in it too.
Yeah. Wait, I can't see because of the Zoom meet. I mean, because of the recording, so I can't see the bottom ones. Yeah, that's fine. You can just read it.
Okay, sorry about that. Oh, there okay. So
we taking over?
It's
oh no, we ready.
It's We Ready. Yeah. And Middle Child by J. Cole. Man, we got some heaters, bro. Okay.
All right, let me get that right side. Let me introduce that right side real quick. What are you doing here? Yeah, just zoom in it. The right side should be fine because of the. All right, cool. So at the top, we got coming in Dreams and Nightmares, Meek Mill. That is probably that one's gonna go far. I don't want to start debating now, but Dreams and Nightmares is a hit, man. That is a locker room favorite for me. Going up against We Taking Over, DJ Khaled.
Oh,
that
man.
is 7th grade Pee Wee football.
Alabama, Mississippi.
Tallahassee. Yeah, We Taking Over, DJ Khaled. That whole cast. T.I., Rick Ross, Birdman, Lil Wayne, Fat Joe. That is a heater. Numb, Encore, Linkin Park, Jay-Z mix. Straight banger.
What'd
you say? Go for it.
This matchup is like, I don't know why the randomizer had to do this to me, man. Like these are like, I listen to these daily almost, like Numb, Encore, and Go Get It.
Go Get It, T.I. They're like outside of the pre-race playlist. They're just on your normal playlist.
I saw Go Get It live at the Mid-State Fair.
At the Mid-State Fair.
I saw T.I. I saw T.I. live and he played Go Get It. I went nuts.
grown man going crazy nuts. I'd be the same way, man. But next up we have Superhero Metro Boomin versus Put On Young Jeezy. Two bangers, dude. Those are in my gym rotation. Those are my pre-race rotation. Those are in my normal daily music listening rotation. One's new generation rap with Future and Chris Brown. Other one is throwback Young Jeezy to the Recession album.
Yep.
Then we got Run This Town, Jay-Z, Kanye, and Rihanna versus New Level, ASAP Ferg. Ooh, New Level is part of my angry rap playlist. When I want to lift heavy weights and just slam shit, New Level is on there, man.
Yeah. That's gonna be, man, these first round are gonna be tough.
Yeah, Hate It or Love It, The Game versus Power, Kanye West.
I can't dude. How are we gonna get it out of round one? I think could be a multi-part series.
We're gonna have to do time management here. Drop the World, Lil Wayne versus Big Things Poppin', T.I. Two iconic tracks for me personally growing up. Then we got Jesus Walks, Kanye West versus Paris from Watch the Throne, Kanye and Jay-Z. Like I said, we have a lot of Kanye on here. And then we got this is also a pretty interesting one. Divorced Dad banger Higher by Creed versus X Gon' Give It to You, DMX.
Yeah, couple of wild cards right there, really. Those are both bangers. They could go far.
I know, dude. This is gonna be harder than I thought, but a lot of common things in here. Me and Phil, again, these are songs we agree upon. Our playlist that we are going to have for the Lane 1 pod is going to include some of our deep cuts just because there's songs Phil listens to that I don't know. There's songs that I listen to that he doesn't know, or just songs that people would be like, why would you listen to this as a pre-race? But for me, it just gets me in the zone. Same thing for Phil, just a couple of different tracks that we both like that we had to kind of kill to keep the bracket at 32. If not, this bracket could go on to 64. We just don't have that kind of time.
Yeah. I mean, we spent a lot of time going through these with a fine tooth comb, really trimming it down to 32. There was a lot of really good songs that aren't on this list.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited about that.
So we will go through that on our next podcast. Do you have anything else, Mark?
No, I think we're good to close it out. Just excited to go through this one. I think the bracket's going to be a lot of fun.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Until next time.
And make sure you like, comment, subscribe to us, to the Lane 1 Talk Show, and we'll see you next time.